As people are concerned about what the future is going to be in the financial markets, they are concerned as well about what is the future going to be in places like Kabul, Afghanistan. Now, in less than 2 hours, the last United Nations aid workers are scheduled to leave Kabul. The UN ordered all of its non-Afghan workers out of Afghanistan after the attacks in New York City and Washington. Osama bin Laden, a name that has been thrown around almost since the beginning of this tragedy, is known, believed to be sheltered there in Afghanistan. The UN says this move was taken out of concern and care for its workers. A UN spokeswoman, though, declining to say whether the organization was worried about being caught in the middle of a possible U.S. military operation. There was a counterinsurgency operation, the opposition in Afghanistan shelling Kabul overnight. Osama bin Laden, of course, the key suspect in the attacks right now, at the top of most terrorism experts' lists. He is based in Afghanistan.
Bin Laden, also, Jim, a member of one of Saudi Arabia's most prominent families. He does live in exile, as I think you just mentioned. And after the attacks, Prince Bandar bin Sultan, Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the U.S., was quick to put as much distance as possible between the kingdom and its most infamous son.
If this case is proven beyond doubt that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Arab people, the Muslim people, will help to expose the identities of the perpetrators of this crime. Lately, the media mentioned Osama bin Laden as a Saudi citizen. We in the kingdom, the government and the people of Saudi Arabia, refuse to have any person affiliated with terrorism to be connected to our country.
And Prince Bandar also said that Saudi Arabia pledges to pump more oil to stabilize world markets in the event that any attacks should trigger some kind of an oil crisis. For Israelis, what happened in New York and Washington is all too familiar, but as Mike Hanna reports, many are offering messages of strength along with their condolences.
A day of mourning in a region which has seen its share of sorrow. Outside the U.S. consulate in East Jerusalem, Palestinians light candles in memory of the American dead.
We do not agree that terror can achieve anything, and we feel in total sympathy with the American people, and we share their grief.
On a Tel Aviv beach, a sign expressing Israeli sadness and recognition of the deep tragedy in the United States. And a coincidence, in downtown Jerusalem, a pizza parlor wrecked in a terror bomb attack a month ago is reopened. The owner of this franchise, he visited the company's World Trade Center franchises a few months ago, has a message for Americans.
They have to be very strong, like we were months ago, and they have to continue. We cannot stop our life with this terrorism.
A parallel echoed by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Daniel Kurtzer.
Both the United States and Israel are proving that we will not back down in the face of terrorism. We have overcome this kind of a problem previously, and we're both strong enough to do it again in the future.
Among those here, survivors of the suicide attack on August 9th.
First of all, we don't let them to change our life, to make a big mess in our life. We'll continue.
I'm here again, and I'll be here, and I'll be everywhere.
Deganit Rufua says it was important that she and her daughter Eden come back to the scene of that tragedy.
Here I show her no dust anymore. It's okay, don't worry. It's finished. The terror is gone and everything will be okay.
On the wall of the rebuilt restaurant, an inscription that reads, "In memory of the darkness that fell upon us." Mike Hanna, CNN, Jerusalem.
Also in the region, Jordan's King Abdullah II saying the attacks are a call for the international community to stop the violence in the Middle East and bring the parties back to the negotiating table.
If you had solved the problems of the Middle East, and obviously the core issue is that between the Israelis and Palestinians, I doubt very much that this incident would have taken place. And again, that was a reminder to all of us, and why I think so many of us in the international community have been working so hard to bring a stop to the violence and bring people back to the peace process, because in a vacuum, you do allow the extremists the upper hand and a chance to try things as was happened yesterday. And they will continue on trying until we can solve the problem once and for all. I hope that this is a renewed effort now by the international community to really be able to work much stronger together. There's a lot more that we can do to break down the barriers of cooperation between different countries, to try and rid ourselves of this horrendous form of international terrorism.
Now, Tuesday's attack, perhaps predictably, being unanimously condemned among U.S. allies. Brent Sadler reports, though, that the U.S. is also receiving sympathy and support for some unexpected quarters.
In a city once known as the terror capital of the world, an English headline in an Arabic newspaper sums up shock and horror. Lebanon is still home to the Iranian-backed Hezbollah organization, long classified by the United States as a terrorist group, although Lebanon itself is not. Hezbollah's spiritual mentor, Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah, said that while they opposed hostile U.S. policy towards Arabs and Islamic people, nothing justifies what happened in America. In Syria, also on Washington's list of states sponsoring terrorism, President Bashar al-Assad sent a personal message of sympathy to President Bush, calling for international cooperation to combat terrorism in all its forms. Among the Lebanese, many tens of thousands of whom are dual nationality US citizens, there's outrage, combined with official support for any US action to combat terrorism.
We have seen children, women, men running on the street, terrified. We cannot accept that. Nobody can accept that. It is against our religion. It is against our all principles we stand for.
But in several of Lebanon's squalid Palestinian refugee camps, some reaction jarred with the prevailing sense of sorrow. We're against international terrorism, says this Palestinian, but America should bear responsibility because it's feeding international terrorism by using its warplanes to strike civilians in Iraq and other places in the world. The Palestinian leadership, struggling to overcome images like these, denounced what it called the isolated actions of a few.
I don't think it should be, for any reason, be used as a representation of how the Palestinians very seriously feel in horror and in sorrow about what happened. These are very isolated incidents, and I think they should really be ignored.
Both Syria and Lebanon say they're willing to cooperate with US-led efforts to combat international terrorism. But any mutual agreement on what specifically constitutes terrorism, especially in the now highly sensitized Middle East, may be easier said than done. Brent Sadler, CNN, Beirut.